has been too light for it. You sting for his sake. And now all guys taken units.
The hospital hallway always felt calm in the early morning. Soft lights hummed overhead, the floors freshly cleaned, the world still waking up. Nurses moved quietly from room to room, coffee cups warming their hands, voices kept low out of habit and respect. Every morning at the same time, the automatic doors opened with a gentle sigh, and the dog appeared. He was older now. His steps were slower, measured. A retired service dog with a graying muzzle and kind eyes that seemed to notice everything. He didn't wander. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight down the hallway, tail steady, posture calm, as if following a path only he could see. Then he stopped. Right in front of one nurse. She noticed him on the third day. At first, she smiled politely, assuming he was visiting someone. But the next morning, he returned. Same time. Same spot. Sitting patiently at her feet, looking up, not begging, not restless, just present. Something about it made her pause. She knelt, gently resting a hand on his head. The dog leaned in, closing his eyes for just a moment, as if the touch completed something he had been carrying. The nurse felt a sudden tightness in her chest she couldn't explain. "Do you know me?" she whispered, half laughing, half curious. The dog didn't move. He only looked at her, focused, connected. Days passed. The routine never changed. Other staff began to notice. Some smiled. Some wondered. But the dog never greeted anyone else. Only her. Only here. The nurse found herself waiting for him now. Watching the doors. Feeling something gentle stir each time he arrived. Whatever he was sensing, whatever memory guided him back each morning, would soon reveal a truth more beautiful than anyone imagined. The hospital always breathed differently before sunrise. Lights glowed soft and low, like the building itself was still half asleep. Polished floors reflected muted colors, cream walls, pale blue doors, gentle green signage, everything calm, everything hushed. Footsteps were careful at this hour. A few nurses moved through the corridor, coffee cups cradled in tired hands, voices kept low without needing to be reminded. This was the time between night and morning when the world paused. And that was when the doors opened. With a quiet sigh, the automatic glass doors slid apart. Cold air slipped inside, and so did the dog. He wasn't young. That was the first thing anyone would notice, the silver threaded through his muzzle, the slight stiffness in his back legs, the way his steps were steady but unhurried. A retired service dog. Medium-sized. Broad chest. Warm brown eyes that seemed to take in the entire hallway at once. He paused just inside the entrance. Not confused. Not searching. Just orienting. As if checking something only he could sense. Then he started forward. His nails clicked softly against the floor, one measured step at a time. Tail low. Head level. Purposeful. He didn't look left or right. Didn't stop for the volunteers at the front desk. Didn't respond to the quiet good morning murmured in his direction. He followed a path. Down the main corridor, past the elevators, past the waiting area where chairs sat empty. Then right where the hallway curved toward the patient wing. He stopped. Saturday. And waited. A nurse walked past him, barely noticing at first. Her name was Emily Carter. Early 30s. Soft-spoken. Dark hair pulled back neatly under her cap. She was finishing her night shift, tired in that quiet, bone-deep way that came after caring for too many people and carrying too many small moments of worry. She took 2 steps, then slowed. Something tugged at her attention. Not a sound. Not movement. A feeling. She turned. The dog was sitting near the wall, perfectly still, eyes lifted toward her. Not begging. Not anxious. Just looking. Emily smiled automatically. The kind of polite smile you give strangers before moving on. "Hey there," she whispered. The dog's ears lifted slightly. That was all. Emily hesitated, then continued down the hall. She assumed someone would come for him. Someone always did. But when she finished charting, when she walked back toward the exit an hour later, the dog was gone. She didn't think about it again. Not that day. The next morning, the pattern repeated. Same hour. Same quiet hallway. Same soft glow of early light. And again, the doors opened. The dog entered. This time, a different nurse noticed him first. "Oh," she murmured, pausing. "Is he visiting someone?" No one answered. The dog moved past her without looking up. Down the corridor. Same path. Same calm certainty. And again, he stopped. Same spot. And waited. Emily rounded the corner moments later, clipboard tucked under her arm. She froze. Because the dog was already there. Sitting. Watching her. Her steps slowed. Her chest tightened just a little. She didn't know why. "Well," she murmured softly, "you again." She knelt this time. Careful. Respectful. Up close, she noticed the small details, the worn edge of his collar, the faint scar along his shoulder, the way his breathing was steady and calm. "Are you lost?" she asked quietly. The dog leaned forward. Just enough to rest his forehead gently against her knee. Emily inhaled sharply. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't sudden. It was intentional. Her hand lifted without thinking and settled on his head. His eyes closed. For a brief moment, just a heartbeat, the hallway seemed to disappear. Emily felt something warm move through her chest, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not sadness. Not joy. Recognition. She swallowed. "Do you belong to someone here?" she whispered. The dog didn't move. Didn't pull away. Didn't shift. He stayed. As if this moment was exactly where he was meant to be. A passing orderly paused nearby. "You know him?" he asked quietly. Emily shook her head. "No," she said. "I don't think so." The dog finally lifted his head. Looked at her again. Focused. Present. Then, as if some invisible signal had sounded, he stood, turned, and walked calmly back toward the exit. Emily watched him go, her hand still hovering in the air where his head had been. Something inside her felt unsettled. But not in a bad way. In a curious way. The kind that lingers. On the third morning, Emily found herself watching the doors. She didn't admit it to herself, not fully. But she slowed her steps. Timed her routine differently. And when the doors opened again, when the familiar shape appeared, her breath caught. The dog entered. Same pace. Same calm presence. Same quiet purpose. He walked straight toward her. Saturday. And waited. Emily smiled this time without hesitation. Whatever was happening, whatever this was, it wasn't random. And somewhere deep within the dog, a memory was guiding him back each morning. A memory that hadn't faded, hadn't loosened its grip, hadn't forgotten her. What he sensed, what he remembered, was only beginning to reveal itself. By the fourth morning, the hospital staff had begun to expect him. Not officially. Not out loud. But there was a subtle shift. A glance toward the entrance at a certain hour. A quiet smile shared between two nurses. A soft comment spoken under breath. "He's back." The retired service dog arrived just after dawn. As if guided by an internal clock that never failed. The doors opened. Cool air slipped in. And there he was. Steady. Composed. Unhurried. He paused, as he always did, letting the sounds settle around him. The distant hum of machines, the low murmur of voices, the gentle echo of footsteps. His ears flicked once. Then he moved. Down the corridor. Past the same walls. Over the same polished floor. Never distracted. Never curious about anything else. It was as though the hospital itself was a map he had memorized long ago. Every turn already known. Every stop already chosen. Emily noticed the pattern now. She stood near the nurse's station, watching him approach with a calm she hadn't felt before. "Morning," she whispered. The dog didn't stop. Not yet. He passed her by 2 steps. Then turned. Saturday. Exactly where he always did. Right in front of her. Emily laughed softly under her breath. A quiet sound meant only for herself. "You're very precise," she said. The dog's tail gave a single, slow sweep against the floor. That was all. She crouched beside him again. Not touching this time. Just being there. His posture was relaxed but attentive. Back straight. Head lifted. Eyes warm and steady. No signs of anxiety. No restlessness. He wasn't waiting for a treat. Or a command. He was waiting for her. Another nurse passed by and slowed. "That's the dog I told you about," she whispered. "He comes every morning." Emily nodded. "He always sits right here," she said quietly. "Does anyone know where he's from?" The nurse shook her head. "No collar tag," she replied. "Security checked. He's registered as a retired service animal. Everything's legal." Emily looked down at him again. "Retired," she repeated softly. The words settled differently now. She wondered what his days used to look like. What kind of work he had done. Who he had walked beside. What commands he still remembered. Even if no one asked them anymore. Her shift pulled her away soon after. Patients needed attention. Rounds had to be completed. But when she glanced back, the dog was still sitting there. Waiting. Later that morning, Emily returned to the hallway. The spot was empty. The dog was gone. She felt an unexpected flicker of disappointment. Small. Almost silly. But real. That evening at home, she mentioned him casually over dinner. "There's a dog at the hospital," she said, stirring her soup. "He comes every morning. Sits with me for a bit." Her sister looked up. "A stray?" "No," Emily replied. "He's trained. Calm. Retired service dog, apparently. Maybe he likes you." Emily smiled. Maybe. But later, lying awake in the quiet, she thought about his eyes. The way they held something deeper than curiosity. Something older. The next morning, Emily arrived a little earlier than usual. She told herself it was practical. Less rushing. More time to settle in. But when the doors opened, her heart lifted. The dog entered. Right on time. He followed his route without hesitation. Stopping at his place. Sitting. Waiting. Emily knelt immediately this time. "Good morning," she said softly. The dog leaned forward again, resting his head gently against her knee. She placed her hand on his neck, fingers brushing against his fur. It was warm. Familiar. She felt it again. That quiet sense of recognition. Like hearing a song you hadn't realized you remembered. "You know," she murmured. "I feel like I should remember you." The dog exhaled slowly. A long, contented breath. Around them, the hospital continued its rhythm. Phones ringing softly. Shoes squeaking faintly. A cart rolling past. But the moment stayed contained. Still. A volunteer stopped nearby. "Is he yours?" she asked gently. Emily shook her head. "No," she said. "But he comes to see me every morning." The volunteer smiled. "Well," she said, "that feels special." Emily watched the dog as the volunteer walked away. Special. Yes. That was the word. Over the next several days, the routine never changed. Same time. Same entrance. Same path. Same quiet meeting. Emily learned small details. He liked sitting close, but not touching for long. He responded to soft voices, but not commands. He never barked. Never pulled. Never strayed. When Emily stood, he stood. When she knelt, he leaned in, always mirroring her pace, as if tuned to her presence. She started bringing an extra cup of water, leaving it near the wall. He accepted it politely, lapping slowly, then returning to his spot. And every time, without fail, when the moment felt complete, he stood, turned, and walked away. No hesitation. No backward glance. As if something inside him knew exactly. When the greeting had done its work, Emily began to feel it then. A growing certainty beneath the mystery. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't habit alone. This was memory. And whatever he was remembering, it was tied to her more deeply than she had understood. The gentle routine carried something fragile inside it. Something waiting to be uncovered. And soon, Emily would begin asking the questions. That would change everything. By the second week, Emily stopped pretending the dog was just a pleasant distraction. He had become part of her mornings. Not in a loud or obvious way, but in the quiet spaces between tasks, in the pauses she hadn't noticed before. She found herself listening for the doors. Not staring. Not waiting openly. Just aware. And every time the soft sigh of glass sliding open reached her ears, her shoulders relaxed. There he was. Right on time. The retired service dog entered with the same calm focus, his movements smooth, practiced, as if this building still belonged to him. Emily watched from the nurse's station as he made his way down the corridor. She noticed things now she hadn't before. How he kept slightly to the right side of the hallway. How he slowed just before the curve. How his head lifted a fraction, not searching, remembering. When he reached her, he didn't sit immediately this time. He stood in front of her for a moment, eyes steady on her face. Emily smiled softly. "Checking to make sure it's me," she whispered. His tail gave a slow, deliberate wag. Then he sat. Right where he always did. She crouched beside him, her movements unhurried. She didn't touch him right away. She let the moment settle. Around them, the hospital continued, monitors beeping in distant rooms, soft footsteps passing by, voices exchanging quick updates. But inside the small circle they formed together, everything felt slower. "You know," she murmured, "I don't even know your name." The dog tilted his head slightly. Emily laughed under her breath. "I guess that doesn't matter much, does it?" She rested her hand on his shoulder. He leaned in just enough to acknowledge it. The warmth of his presence surprised her every time. Not overwhelming. Not heavy. Just grounding. Later that morning, Emily found herself asking questions. Quiet ones. To people who might know. "Has anyone figured out who the dog belongs to?" she asked a charge nurse. The woman shook her head. "Security ran his chip," she said. "He's registered to a veteran support organization. Retired. Cleared to visit public spaces." "Does he have a handler?" Emily asked. "Had one," the nurse replied gently. "Years ago." Emily felt something stir in her chest. Do we know where the handler is now? The nurse hesitated. No, she said. But usually when they retire, it's because their work is done, or their partner's is. Emily nodded slowly. She didn't press further. But the words stayed with her. That afternoon, Emily passed the spot where the dog usually sat. Empty. She paused there longer than she meant to. She tried to picture him in a different place, younger, stronger, moving with purpose beside someone who depended on him. She imagined him guiding, waiting, protecting, serving. Something about that idea made her throat tighten. The next morning, the dog arrived as always. But this time, something was different. Not in his routine. In Emily. She knelt faster. Closer. You come here for a reason, she said quietly. The dog didn't blink. Didn't shift. His eyes stayed locked on hers. I don't know what it is yet, she continued, but I think it has something to do with remembering. She brushed her fingers gently along his collar. That's when she noticed it. A faint indentation in the worn leather. Letters. Nearly faded. She leaned closer. Squinted. E. M. Her breath caught. She didn't say it out loud. Not yet. She traced the shape lightly with her fingertip. The dog exhaled slowly. A soft sound. Almost like relief. Emily swallowed. Her heart began to beat a little faster now, not from fear, but from recognition growing sharper. Did you used to know me? She whispered. The dog leaned forward, resting his head against her chest this time. Not her knee. Her chest. Emily froze. Her arms wrapped around him instinctively, careful, gentle. She felt his heartbeat. Steady. Strong. And suddenly a memory brushed the edge of her mind. A hospital room, years ago. Different lights. Different smells. A dog lying at the foot of a bed. Waiting. She pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his face. He looked at her the same way. Focused. Connected. As if he had been waiting for this moment, for her to notice, for her to remember. Emily sat there long after he left that morning. The hallway returned to its rhythm. But something inside her had shifted. The mystery was no longer just gentle. It was personal. And she knew now, without needing proof. This dog wasn't just visiting. He was coming back. For her. And the truth behind the choice was closer than she had ever imagined. After that morning, Emily stopped asking herself if the dog remembered her. The question became, how? She moved through her shifts differently now. More attentive to the quiet moments. More aware of the small spaces where meaning often hides. When the doors opened the next day, she was already there. Not waiting in the open. Just positioned nearby. As if drawn by an instinct of her own. The dog entered. Same calm stride. Same steady breath. But when he saw her, something subtle changed. His ears lifted. His steps slowed. Recognition. He reached her spot and didn't sit right away. Instead, he stepped closer. Emily felt it in her chest before she understood it. That sense of closeness tightening the space between them. She knelt without speaking. No greeting this time. No questions. Just presence. The dog sat slowly, carefully, as though easing into something precious. Emily rested her forehead briefly against his. Not pressing. Not holding. Just touching. The warmth surprised her again. She closed her eyes. In that stillness, memories began to rise, not fully formed. Just impressions. A voice calling softly. A hand on fur. A long night that stretched into morning. She pulled back and smiled faintly. "We've done this before," she murmured. The dog's tail moved once. Their connection deepened quietly over the following days. No big moments. No explanations. Just small, repeated gestures. Emily began speaking to him while she worked nearby. Not commands. Not stories. Simple things. "It's quieter today. Some patients are finally sleeping. I like mornings best." The dog listened. Or maybe he simply shared the space. Either way, it felt the same. Sometimes she brought a folded blanket and placed it against the wall. The dog never lay down, but he brushed against it when he sat, as if comfort still mattered. Staff learned not to interrupt. They passed around them gently, lowering voices without being asked. One doctor paused once and whispered, "He's very focused on you." Emily nodded. "Yes," she said. "I think I am too." One morning, as soft sunlight stretched across the floor, Emily tried something. She stood. The dog stood immediately. She took a step back. He followed. Not pulling. Not guiding. Just matching her pace. Her breath caught. She turned slowly. The dog turned with her. Not watching the hallway. Watching her. She felt a sudden warmth spread behind her eyes. "You remember walking with me," she said quietly. The dog didn't react outwardly, but something in his posture changed. A familiar readiness. A muscle memory. She took another step. He stayed perfectly beside her. Emily stopped. He stopped. The realization settled gently but firmly. This wasn't just affection. This was training. And trust. And time. She knelt again, hands resting on her thighs. "I think I was important to you," she said softly. The dog leaned forward, resting his head against her shoulder. The contact was light. Intentional. Emily let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Later that day, Emily found herself in the old records office. Not searching aggressively. Just curious. She flipped through archived volunteer logs, therapy programs, outreach initiatives. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, only that she would recognize it. When she saw it, she paused at a faded photo clipped to a bulletin board. A younger version of herself. Hair pulled back differently. Face more tired. She was kneeling beside a dog. A familiar dog. Her chest tightened. The caption beneath the photo read, "Therapy Team, Pediatric Wing, 7 years ago." Emily touched the edge of the picture. She remembered now. Not all at once, but enough. Long nights with frightened children. Quiet moments spent sitting on the floor. A dog trained to stay. To comfort. To wait. She hadn't known what happened to him after she transferred departments. Life had moved on. Schedules changed. People changed. But he hadn't forgotten. The next morning, when the dog arrived, Emily greeted him differently. She placed her hand over her heart. "Hey," she whispered. "I remember." The dog sat. Eyes soft. Still. As if something inside him finally settled. They stayed that way longer than usual, sharing a silence that felt full instead of empty. The bond between them no longer needed explanation. It existed without words. Without effort. Built on memory. On presence. On a promise neither of them had realized they were keeping. And now that the connection had fully formed, the next step wasn't about discovery anymore. It was about understanding. What this memory had been waiting for. And what it was asking of her now. After Emily remembered, the mystery didn't disappear. It softened, but it didn't resolve. The dog still arrived each morning, same time, same quiet confidence, but now there was a new layer to the way Emily watched him. Not curiosity anymore. Concern. She noticed the way his steps were slightly slower than before. How he paused longer after sitting. How his breathing deepened when he leaned against her. Small signs. Easy to miss. But once seen, impossible to forget. One morning, as warm light filtered through the high windows, Emily knelt beside him and brushed her fingers along his neck. "You've been doing this a long time, haven't you?" she whispered. The dog closed his eyes. She wondered how many hospital floors he had walked. How many people he had comforted. How many goodbyes he had absorbed without question. He had carried memory like a responsibility, steady, quiet, faithful. And now, he was still coming. Emily began asking questions again. This time with intention. She spoke with the volunteer coordinator, then with hospital administration, then finally with a representative from the Veterans Support Organization listed on his records. They met in a small office off the main hall. Warm lamplight. Paper files stacked neatly. "He's cleared to visit," the woman explained gently. "But we hadn't realized he was coming so often." Emily nodded. "He used to be part of our pediatric therapy team," she said. "I worked with him years ago." The woman smiled. "He had a strong bond with his partners," she said. "Especially the ones who treated him like a teammate, not a tool." Emily felt that familiar tightness in her chest. "Where does he live now?" she asked quietly. The woman hesitated. "He's with a foster family," she said. "They take good care of him. But he's old." The word lingered. Emily swallowed. "Does he still have a handler?" The woman shook her head. "His original handler passed away several years ago," she said softly. The dog retired shortly after. Emily looked down at her hands. Everything clicked into place. The structure. The loyalty. The unwavering routine. He had lost his partner, then slowly lost his role. But not his purpose. That evening, Emily couldn't sleep. She lay awake replaying moments, the way he waited, the way he left when the greeting felt complete. She realized something then. He wasn't just visiting her. He was checking in. As if confirming she was still here. Still okay? Still home. The next morning, Emily brought a small treat with her. Not as a reward. As an offering. When the dog arrived, she knelt and held it out. He sniffed politely. Then turned his head away. Emily smiled sadly. "Still working," she murmured. She placed the treat on the floor instead and rested her hand on his shoulder. He leaned into her touch. That was enough. Later that week, Emily noticed him hesitate near the entrance. Just for a second. It wasn't confusion. It was effort. She walked toward him instinctively. "You don't have to come all the way," she said softly. He continued anyway. Saturday. Waited. Emily knelt lower this time, bringing her face closer to his. "I don't know how long you can keep doing this," she whispered. "But I'm glad you're here." The dog lifted his head and rested it against her chest again. That familiar place. That familiar trust. Emily wrapped her arms around him carefully. She felt his breath slow. Felt the weight of time settle gently between them. The answers Emily sought weren't coming easily. There were no clear instructions. No obvious next steps. Only a feeling growing stronger with each morning. This routine was nearing something. Not an ending. A transition. The dog wasn't holding onto the past blindly. He was completing something. And whatever that was, Emily sensed it would require a choice. One she wasn't ready to name yet. But soon, very soon, the gentle mystery would ask its final question. And the answer would change both of them forever. The morning light spilled across the corridor, warm and golden, catching dust motes in the air like tiny floating stars. Emily arrived early, as always. Her heartbeat carried a quiet rhythm of anticipation. She knew he would be coming. She had counted on it, almost needed it. The dog appeared just as the doors sighed open. Older now, slower in gait, yet every step radiated purpose. His eyes scanned the hall, not aimlessly, but with quiet certainty until they found her. He walked toward her, pausing only briefly near the nurse's station, then down the familiar path, tail low but swaying gently. He sat. Right where he always did. Emily knelt beside him, feeling the warmth of the morning sunlight pooling around them. The dog leaned in, resting his head against her shoulder, as though drawing energy from her presence or offering it. "Good morning," she whispered, softly. Her fingers traced the faint scars and worn spots on his neck. Each mark told a story. Each touch felt like a question and an answer at once. Suddenly, the memory came rushing, clearer than before. A pediatric ward years ago. A small boy clutching a blanket. Tears streaming down his cheeks. And a dog, just like this one, lying quietly at the foot of the bed. Trained. Attentive. A silent guardian. Emily's chest tightened. She remembered the nights she spent kneeling on the floor, talking to frightened children. Talking to their parents. Talking to the dog, always the dog. The realization hit her fully. This was the same dog. He remembered her. He had come back for her. Not randomly. Not by accident. But because she had once mattered in his life. And he still carried that memory. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. She swallowed hard, letting a small, grateful smile form. "You remembered me," she whispered. "After all these years, you remembered." The dog lifted his head slightly, looking deep into her eyes. No barking. No movement. Just presence. Quiet understanding. Emily realized something else. He wasn't just remembering her. He was protecting her in a way that went beyond words. Loyalty. Devotion. A lifetime of training and love. Staff began their rounds, but Emily barely noticed. The corridor faded. The lights, the distant voices, the footsteps all became background to this moment. She rested her forehead gently against his. And in that touch, she felt all the years collapse. The separation. The uncertainty. The gentle ache of memory. All replaced by clarity. The dog leaned into her, allowing a soft exhale. Emily's hand rested on his shoulder, then slid down along his side. Every movement slow, deliberate. Every heartbeat in rhythm. Something inside her shifted. The questions that had lingered now had answers, though unspoken. The routine. The mornings. The quiet visits. All made sense now. And as he finally lifted his head and looked down the corridor, Emily followed his gaze. There, just a few steps away, was a small group of children visiting the hospital's pediatric wing. The dog's ears pricked slightly. His purpose renewed, but not detached from her. He would return. Always. Emily stood, letting him rise with her. She knelt again briefly to brush her hand across his fur. "Thank you," she whispered. The words hung in the air, soft, unforced, full of warmth and understanding. In that golden morning light, the connection they had formed, built over weeks of quiet routines, of small gestures, of patient waiting, solidified. The dog had reminded her, without a single word, what loyalty truly meant. What love in action looked like. And in turn, Emily realized that she had been waiting for this, without ever knowing it. The hospital was quiet that morning, soft sunlight spilling through the tall windows, painting warm rectangles across the polished floor. Emily arrived with a sense of calm anticipation. The uncertainty that had tugged at her chest over the past weeks had softened into a gentle understanding. And as always, the dog arrived. He walked with the same measured pace, tail low, eye steady. Every step seemed intentional, deliberate, as though tracing an invisible thread only he could feel. When he reached her, he paused briefly, then sat right at her feet, the ritual complete, as it had been every morning. Emily knelt beside him, resting a hand on his neck. She felt the warmth of his body, the subtle rise and fall of his breath. And then it came, the memory in full, no longer fragments, no longer whispers. Years ago, in the pediatric wing, Emily had been kneeling on the floor, reading a story to a small boy clinging to a thin blanket. The boy had been frightened of the monitors, the bright lights, the unfamiliar smells. The dog, this very dog, had been there, lying at the foot of the bed, steady, unwavering. Emily remembered now the nights spent comforting children, the silent vigil beside patients who couldn't sleep, the small victories, a smile returned, a hand unclenched, a tear dried. The dog had been her partner in every one of those moments, guiding her, supporting her, protecting her without hesitation. And now, after all these years, he had returned. Not because of a schedule, not because of a duty assigned by someone else, but because of the bond they had shared. A memory that had never left. A loyalty that time could not erode. Emily felt a tear roll down her cheek. She brushed it gently away, resting her forehead against his. The dog leaned into her touch. Eyes soft, steady, full of understanding. It was then that Emily realized, every morning, every quiet gesture, every small interaction had been a message. A message that said, I remember. I am here. I have not forgotten. For the first time, she felt the full weight of it, and the full warmth. All the mornings, all the waiting, all the subtle gestures, they had led to this moment. She whispered softly, thank you, for never forgetting. The dog exhaled, a slow, contented breath. He rested his head against her shoulder. The quiet bond between them had become unbreakable, a testament to memory, loyalty, and love. And in that moment, Emily knew that whatever had been lost, whatever had been paused, was now found again. A memory lives within, and through it, their hearts had been reunited. The morning sunlight spilled softly into the hospital corridor, painting warm stripes across the polished floor. Emily felt a calm settle over her as she approached the nurse's station, her heartbeat in quiet rhythm with the day's gentle flow. She knew the dog would be coming. He never failed. And she was ready to see him one last time in this chapter of their story. The doors sighed open. Cool air drifted inside. And there he was. Older now, slower, but every step carried the same quiet purpose. His eyes met hers immediately, steady, warm, connected. He walked straight to her, no detours, no hesitation, and sat at her feet, the ritual as familiar as breathing. Emily knelt beside him, resting her hand gently along his side. She felt the warmth of his body, the slow, comforting rise and fall of his breath. Hello, old friend, she whispered softly. The words felt small but enough. Enough to bridge the years and the quiet spaces in between. For a long moment, they simply existed together, bound by memory, by trust, by the silent understanding that had grown over countless mornings. Then Emily spoke again. I know you've done your work, she said quietly. You've been my guide, my companion, my reminder of what matters. Her fingers traced along his worn collar, along the scars and faded fur, every mark a story. The dog leaned into her hand, his eyes soft, filled with recognition and calm. No commands were needed. No instructions. He simply rested beside her, as he had always known to do. A nurse passed by, pausing briefly, smiling at the sight. This is something special, she murmured. Emily nodded, her eyes glistening. It is, she whispered. Then, as if completing an unspoken promise, the dog rose slowly. He moved with dignity and grace, turning toward the exit with measured steps. Emily stayed kneeling, watching. Before he disappeared through the doors, he looked back. Eyes locked with hers. A soft, gentle glance that spoke everything words could not. I have remembered. I have been with you. And now, it is time. Emily let out a slow breath. She remained kneeling, feeling the quiet ache and the warmth of closure blend together into something beautiful. The hallway returned to its rhythm, lights humming, footsteps echoing, voices softly exchanging greetings. But Emily felt a new stillness inside her, a gentle peace. She rose and touched the spot where he had been sitting, a small smile curving her lips. "I'll never forget you," she whispered. And in that quiet moment, she knew the bond they had shared would last forever. Memories remained alive, faithful and true, and through them, healing had come for both of them. A single golden ray fell across the floor, illuminating the space where loyalty, love, and remembrance had met. Emily exhaled, softly smiling. The story had ended, and yet it would live on, in memory, and in the heart.